red-haired woman is caught off guard by the green-clad doll, suddenly jumping across her path and forgets to duck. Kenny tackles Lentine to the ground, and the bullets that would have hit her square in the chest instead slams into the man's back plates. The other troopers immediately stopped shooting and dragged the two of them into safety. The woman gets to her feet and immediately checks on the squad leader's wounds. She quickly inspects the place where he was struck and finds a bullet stuck between two of his ballistic plates. The woman kicks the squad leader. After realizing he wasn't injured after all, Kenny scrambles to his feet. Lentine pays him no further heed. Instead, she peers out from behind their cover. The smoke cloud has fully spread out. She can't see anything. Lentine trembles with rage. She pulls out a cigarette and takes a deep drag from it to calm herself down. After a brief period of contemplation, her reason wins out over her emotions. The attack and losses sustained have far exceeded anything she has expected. Meanwhile, it's very hard for her not to imagine what has happened. Here, after looking at the corpse of the bosom in the deep pit and that of the woman in the black outside it, Lentine mutters to herself, a mix of emotions in her heart. Then she casts aside her cigarette butt and vanishes into the darkness of the tunnels with the rest of her men. The few remaining black armor troopers file into the IFVs. Their rear hatch close up and their engines roar loudly. The two IFVs stop at the entrance of the tunnel. It is wide enough that they can drive into it side by side. The remaining 3 IFVs are parked outside the entrance, flanking it with their autocannons pointing into the opening. All their targeting optics are riddled with bullet holes, forcing the crew to pop their hatch and physically view their surroundings. The vehicle's headlights turn on. One of the vehicle commanders signals an advance, and the 2 lead IFVs drives into the tunnel. The black armored men emerge from the vehicle, guns held at the ready, as they eye the area around them. The IFV picks up speed, crushing crates and corpses underfoot. The black armored troopers notice that the crushed corpses have Bangai security written on their gear, but their rapid movement soon carries them out of sight. Stopping at the end of the tunnel, the IFV's headlights cast a clear glow ahead, while the elevator platform noisily makes its way up the shaft. The spinning yellow lights and alarm klaxons are a constant reminder of the IFV's crew and completement that the elevator is about to arrive. The elevator platform is stacked high with various crates. The IFVs turn their turrets to cover it as it comes into everyone's view. While they can't see the enemy's positions, the IFV's gunners pull the triggers on their hand stations without hesitation. The IFV's autocannons and coaxial miniguns open up in unison, the tremendous power of their large caliber rounds shredding the boxes and crates on the platform to pieces. The autocannon rounds even pierce the platform itself and turns its center into Swiss cheese. The plumes of smoke from the gunfire covers the entire platform, and it is only after 10 odd seconds of this withering barrage that the IFV finally cease their attack. A sharp blade slashes through the neck of the speaking trooper. He stares incredulously at the attired doll who has appeared behind him. Blood spurts from his severed carotid and jugular. He tries with all his might to stop the bleeding, but fails, and he collapses limply through the turret hatch and into the vehicle's interior. Another doll descends from the ceiling, landing heavily on the turret. The crewman nearest to her tries to pull out a pistol and shoot, but she kicks his head so hard it spins a full 360 degrees around his neck. Yee. Don't shoot. We'll capture one of the IFVs and wipe out the rest of the enemies. Roger that. Commencing operations. Thanks, Centauressi. Those autocannons would have shot us to bits if it wasn't for you. Warning. Or it wasn't for your warning. Just before the IFVs arrived, the dolls had already carried me and jumped up to the elevator landing where we hid in a southern tunnel. Meanwhile, Jiangzhu and Centauressi lay in ambush on the ceiling, waiting for the enemy to deliver themselves into our net. Good point. We would have had a much harder time if they had buttoned up in their vehicles. Those metal boxes are a real pain. Seeing how proud Macchiato looks, I nod in her direction to shoot my approval. Still, staying here is too dangerous. I gestured to gestured for the dolls to gather up so we can begin planning our next move. Thank you, everyone. You were a godsend. Come on, let's mount up. Santoresi climbs into the driver's seat while the other dolls chuck the corpses out of the vehicles before filling up the compartment. Santoresi finishes downloading the IFV's driving software just as everyone finishes taking their places. Just as she begins to reverse, however, a massive explosion comes from deep within the underground complex. Damn it! They must be trying to blow up the place. Hurry, we need to get out of here. Santoresi floors the accelerator on the IFVs and it lurches forward. The tunnel behind the IFV begins to disintegrate in its wake and chunks of debris fall from the ceiling like stone rain. The tunnel is collapsing faster and faster, but Santoresi is already driving as fast as the IFVs can go. From her perch inside the turret, Macchiato spots more IFVs waiting to ambush us, but there's no way we can slow down now. We slammed into a wall of lead from the IVS outside the tunnel, forcing Macchiato to duck back inside the turret. In front, bullets, cannon shells, and all manner of ordnance throw up an endless rain of sparks as they ricochet off the IFV's armor. Behind us, the collapsing tunnel surges forward to consume us all. Suddenly, a tremor of whirling blades shakes the air from behind the IVS that are outside the tunnel. A helicopter armed with rocket pods has just arrived in attack position. The black-clad soldiers are running through the wilderness at top speed. The exit behind them belches flames from the demolition charges as they sprint toward the other one. The, the IFV's turret began swiveling, but it is too late for them. The helicopter hovers in mid-air, and then a volley from its rocket pods turn the IFVs into burning wreckage. The IFVs from inside the tunnel roars out into the open air and bashes the flaming wrecks aside, trailed by explosions which completely destroy the tunnel in its wake. As the flames chase it, the IFV carries on towards a small hill in the distance, while spewing black smoke. The helicopter gracefully banks to the side and flies past us, landing on the hill where we are headed. Once we get there, Santoresi puts on the brakes and I emerge from the IFVs. While I can barely open my eyes because of the downwash and grit, what I do manage to see still shocks me to the core. Nothing could be more familiar to me than the black helicopter before me, except perhaps for the worn but still legible insignia on its side, the shield of G&K. There's no time to admire it, though the dolls pop the IFV's hatches and begin climbing towards it. I helped the dolls push Helena and the box into the cabin. In the distance, the black armored troopers have also gotten to the high ground of their own. The woman who leads them anxiously gazes at the helicopter. In the distance, the woman takes the binoculars that one of her men hands her and looks through them at the helicopter. Through the binoculars, she sees the dolls pulling a human into the cabin. The human takes a seat on the lip of the passenger's compartment. Lentine ups the magnification on her binoculars, but when she sees the man's face, she suddenly freezes. She immediately changes her mind and gives another order. However, the squad leader has already pulled the trigger. A rocket streaks out forward the helicopter. No, towards the helicopter. Sorry for forward. The helicopter immediately pulls up, trying to bank out of that path of the rocket. However, the intersection of its course and that of the missile has sealed the fate of the group on the helicopter. Two shots ring out, piercing the rocket and throwing it off course, where it explodes in mid-air. The shockwave from the rocket's explosion shakes the helicopter, but the pilot soon levels it out. It continues picking up speed, trying to get out of this godforsaken hellhole. As Kenny barks orders to his men, he raises another rocket launcher, awaiting Lantine's response. Upon hearing the order, the black armored troopers obediently remain still and make no further movements. In the distance, the helicopter picks up speed and fades from sight. Meanwhile, the hidden shooters do not reveal themselves. She shoves the binoculars back into Kenny's hands, then takes out a cigarette and lights it. The surviving men in black remain silent, as though waiting for Lantine's next order. A moment later, she throws the cigarette aside without so much as taking a drag on it and turns to address Kenny. Kenny nods. With that, Lantine's heads into the distance, ignoring Kenny's questions. The sounds of the world begins to fade away as she loses herself in thought. There is only one thought left in her mind. Why? 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 Driven by that thought, she sets out on a mission of her own. The helicopter rises through the clouds and reaches its cruising height. I get back inside the cabin and close the door, whereupon the active noise cancelling system installed in all Griffin's helicopters engages and excludes all outside noise. The silent surroundings make me realize that I have left the combat zone And it is only then that I realize that my hands are trembling, a feeling that is slowly rising up my arms. I clench my fists, doing my best to stabilize my heart rate, and then I begin considering the current situation. Based on what I saw just now, the involvement of Pardeus, those PMC troops, and that other Helena are all very unnatural. What on earth is Dandelion trying to pull? Where is she trying to steer all this? I look at the flying dandy gate and think about how to get a straight answer out of her. That missile headed at us clearly did not explode for no reason. From this trajectory and the position where it exploded, someone must have shot it down. In other words, someone secretly saved us, but who could have done that? I pondered the question, but can't come up with anything, since I have no evidence of proof to support it. All I can do is set it aside for now. So where shall we go next? I'll ask Santoresi and Macchiato later. I'm sure they have plans of their own. Should I continue with this transport mission? I look at the box and the other Helena, who looks just like the one I know but acts completely different. Once we get to a safe place, I'm going to have a good long chat with her about what happened before we got to her. After this brief period of contemplation, I looked around the inside of the cabin. This is standard issue Griffin transport helicopter. Judging by its stability in flight and the normal operation of its noise cancellation, this chopper has most likely been maintained at active duty spec from 10 years ago. While the fittings are a little old, they're all pretty much standard issue from back then. Even the first aid kit is in the same place. Macchiato heads over to the co-pilot's seat and talks to a doll I have never seen before about our flight path. Santoresi takes the first aid kit from under the seats and begins treating the wounds of the dolls, who were damaged in the battle just now. The dolls begin exchanging their names and rejoice over surviving that battle just now. I look at Colfin. She's trying to strike up a conversation with the other Helena, but the latter does not respond in any way, only looking down at the box. She looks uneasy, but I can tell that she's trying to rein in her emotions. She's been secretly observing everyone since we got on the helicopter and thinking about something. The box has been secured to the cabin floor. Zahui looks worriedly at it, then looks up at the hovering Dandygate. Upon hearing this, the girl suddenly looks up and addresses the Dandygate in an earnest voice. The Dandygate flies in front of the girl's face, its mono eye focusing on her, but the face reflected its lazy depths does not change. After saying that, the girl lowers her head once again and remains silent, no longer listening to Dandelion's teasing. With a sigh, I looked away from their conversation to the dolls. Centeresi has just finished binding Diane's wounds, so I approached them and asked about their condition. Diane, Jiangju, are you alright? Diane's injuries aren't particularly bad, but Jiangju has suffered a penetration injury through and through to her leg, so Centeresi kneels before her and begins administering first aid. She's carefully extracting the bullets and its fragments, then fills the wound channel with packing epoxy and applies a synth skin patch over the entry and exit wounds. Jiangju limbers up her leg, then nods happily to Centeresi in gratitude. Seeing as Centeresi has finished first aid for them, I decided to ask her the question that's been on my mind. So, what's the deal with this helicopter? The Dandygate shifts its position to directly over my head. I try to look up, but I can't see her. Is that true? Centresi puts the tools back into the first aid kit, then looks up at me with a smile. Eh. I. The sudden surge of emotions leaves me unsure of what to say next. As nostalgia assaults my brain and I look around, I feel like I have gone back 10 years in time. But after seeing the box on the ground and Helena beside me, I realize that I'm no longer in the past. Thank you, everyone. After Macchiato finishes talking with the pilot, she heads in from the pilot's cabin and takes a seat opposite of me. Did she? And your name now is I will, Macchiato. Is Springfield with you too? CHE-02. It's one of the satellite cities on the escort route. I look up at the dandy gate. It pretends that it didn't notice me looking. Ah, yes. We should. Please put me through. Centresi adjusts the transmission frequency and patches the signal into my earpiece. Soon I hear a familiar voice through it. Yes, it has. Sorry for making you go to all this trouble. I guess not. Yes, although I have no idea how you managed to hold on to it for so long. It's definitely a big gift, though, and it's definitely appreciated. cafe? I see. Speaking of which, I have brought a rather complicated bunch of guests with me. Will it be convenient for you? Preparations, you say. I understand. Well, that's Springfield for you. She's already taken into account all the things that were worrying me. I nod, then end the call after thanking her. As I take in the view outside the window, a wave of fatigue suddenly washes over me. Apparently, the sense of security I felt from knowing that I was surrounded by my dolls led me to the relax unconsciously. I lean against my seat and close my eyes, allowing my consciousness to drift into the depths of my mind. And an indistinct voice speaks into my ear. It sounds like Helena. Force my heavy lidded eyes to open and focus my sight on the white-haired girl before me. There seems to be a film of condensation over my field of vision. Helena? I move my slightly stiff joints. I hadn't been expecting to be sleeping so soundly. Then I looked around. Eleanor's the only one here. Everyone else is gone. Where's everybody? She burst into tears. There, don't cry. What happened? I fumble a little as I try to wipe her tears, but she ends up grabbing my wrist instead. I never imagined a child could be so strong. I can't break free of her grip. Don't worry, if nothing else, you will be safe by my side. But if you need my help, then you will need to tell me everything, okay? Eleanor is still sobbing, but she nods. Suddenly, her pupils dilate and the strength fades from her hand. I use this opportunity to regain control over my wrist. Right after that, white mist floods in from outside the helicopter. Helena begins muttering to herself as though she's been summoned by something. Before she can finish, she turns and rushes into the mist. I reflexively follow her. As the mist clears, I grind to a halt as I see a seemingly endless expanse of epitheliums before me. Countless Helenas are walking forward through the flowers. The epitheliums bloom and petals fall like rain. This beautiful scene is indescribably eerie. Helena? My voice shatters the silence of the Helenas as one, they instantly turn to look at me with vacant eyes. Only one of them has the same sad look on her face. Then leave with me, we'll go together. Helena shakes her head. Destiny. To hell with destiny. As thought flashes through my head, for some reason I feel like if I let go of Helena, I lose her forever. What on earth are you saying? I pick up the pace until I reach Helena. I need to get her out of this creepy place. I physically drag her away if I have to. However, no matter how much strength I use, Helena refuses to budge. Helena picks an epithelium beside her. The soft, lovely flower instantly transforms into a sharp blade that gleams coldly, and she stabs it into my heart without hesitation. I can't dodge the blow, but my chest doesn't hurt. It just feels cold. Helena weeps, and my consciousness grows hazy. Bolt upright, like I have been electrocuted. As after gasping heavily for several seconds, I realize the dandy gate is perched on my chest. That must have been where the coldness came from. Upon seeing that I am getting up, the dandy gate hops off my chest and takes to the air. I turn to look at the girl in the corner, then at the box and quietly sigh. More like a nightmare. I think I was too tense. I'm okay now. Dandelion flies a circle around my head before descending before my face again. I look outside the window again. The helicopter is approaching the city. doll who Macchiato calls Sharkry is speaking into the communicator. It seems she's talking to the local air traffic controllers. Looking down, I noticed that despite us heading straight for the city, the air defense emplacements on the wall are not tracking us as though we're old friends. That takes me by surprise. It implies that this helicopter has been legally registered and has permission to use the city's airspace. The cost of obtaining such permission might actually be greater than the price of the helicopter itself. The helicopter slowly descends as we near the city until we end up touching down on a small helipad near the city walls. After stepping out of the helicopter, the massive quarantine walls fill my line of sight. As I look around, I notice that all the nearby security cameras are facing elsewhere, as several men in police uniforms approach us. Macchiato moves up to meet them and stuffs several black cards into their hands. The men nod before heading towards the helicopter. They walk past us as though we were invisible and enter the helicopter. Soon the helicopter lifts off and flies elsewhere. Go rest, I'll come by afterwards. Diane nods and the trio of dolls head into a passage with Sharkry. Meanwhile, Macchiato enters a passcode into a nearby door before beckoning me over. I enter it with her, followed by Colfin, who is holding Helena's hand. Santoresi is at the rear of the group, carrying the box on her back. After passing through a rundown maintenance passage and taking a cargo elevator into an underground area, we arrive at a small storage unit. There is a 6-seater light truck inside it. We mount up in silence and drive it out of the storage unit. As we emerge from the underground area, the sunlight hits my face. It is sunset now, and the truck slowly climbs in a long spiral from the sublevels of the satellite city toward a higher elevation. As we go deeper into the city, more and more lights come on. It seems they're celebrating some sort of festival. Helena's eyes are drawn to the lights of the city. She seems to be trying to greedily devour them all in her gaze. All this must be fresh and new to her. I can practically sense the excitement and eagerness boiling in her heart. However, when she looks back inside the truck and sees the box on the floorboards, her eyes go dull again. She notices that I'm looking and turns to look me in the eye, and on my part, I do not shy away from meeting her gaze. Then her mouth opens as though she wants to say something, but then she hesitates. Instead, she turns away, looking neither at the city nor the box, but at her feet, and she seems to be waxing thoughtful. An hour and two more changes of vehicles later, Macchiato drive into a skyscraper, whereupon we dismount and get into an elevator. As its doors open, we are greeted by a bright yet completely sealed room. Springfield is there. Clearly, she has been waiting for us for quite a while. And here I thought we'd run into a blockade or be subjected to a thrilling car chase. Looks like I was overthinking things. Well, that's our reliable cafe manager for you. Speaking of which, this isn't Zucchero, is it? I look around. We appear to be in a very high-end safe house, packed with all kinds of comms equipment and weaponry. Even the walls have been reinforced with ballistic armor plating. The Dandy Gate comes to a halt in front of Springfield and projects Dandelion's face. Boy, that's enough nonsense out of you. The dandy gate flies above Springfield, and with a snap, it powers down and falls into her hands. Springfield finds a wall socket and plugs the dandy gate into it. Then she dusts her hands off before smiling at us. Springfield walks up to the girl. The girl doesn't answer, and Colfin directs a pleading gaze at me. It's fine, let them handle it. You should get some rest too. We'll meet in the hall later. It is only after hearing me speak that Colfin lets go of Helena's hand. Santaresi leads Colfin to one of the rooms and escorts her inside. Springfield smiles and holds a hand out to Helena. The latter doesn't take it, but she eventually nods after hesitating for a moment. Springfield then turns to say a few things to Santaresi before the two of them lead Helena into another room. Before they leave, Springfield turns to speak to me. Right. After Springfield and company leave, the only people left are me and Macchiato. Please do. Macchiato leads me forward, then stops in front of a door. I open it and see a guest room. Within, it's not too big but is luxuriously appointed, and there is a shower and bathroom inside. This is a really fancy place. I guess that's a high-end apartment for you. Huh? You've got a place of your own? If? Okay, I'm going now. I entered the room and Macchiato closes the door with a click. I sigh heavily, then take off my jacket before laying down on the bed, while I still feel very tired. Sleep is long in coming. Sleep is long in coming? After tossing and turning a few times, I decide to clean myself up and enter the bathroom for a shower. The clean room and comfortably warm water make me realize that I haven't been treated this well in a long, long time. As I spray myself with hot water from the shower head, I think back on the things that happened before this. One thing's for sure, I don't regret anything that happened. I feel much more refreshed after exiting the shower and drying myself off. Then it's on with my clothes and back on the bed again to await Springfield's summons. Just as I'm about to fall asleep again after many minutes, I finally hear Springfield's voice from my terminal. I throw on my jacket and head outside. As I do, I see Springfield and the others waiting for me in the main hall. I notice that Helena's sitting on a sofa. The grime and bloodstains from earlier have been cleaned off and she's wearing a fresh set of clothing. Okay. Anything else? Coffin is sitting by her side while Springfield is seated opposite them. Macchiato and Santoresi are watching us from a distance. I glance over at Springfield and she moves aside with a smile. I walked up to Helena, then take a seat on the sofa opposite her. You look much prettier now. Helena blushes as little and then she answers in a very quiet voice. Well, at least she looks like a normal girl now. I rest my elbows on my knees, then lean forward to study Helena for a moment before I begin speaking. I know you must have a lot of questions about us, just like how we have a lot of questions about you. I'm sure everything that happened just now must have come as a huge shock to you. But it's over now. So let's sit down and have a good chat. Really? Now? The girl frowns and she looks up at me. I look back at her without flinching, and she decides to take the initiative. Where should I begin? Well, I'm just a perfectly ordinary bounty hunter, and these dolls are all my ex-subordinates. They're all kind and friendly dolls, but I guess you already knew that. Helena looks at the dolls around her and nods. We were asked to escort Helena to a safe place where she could be cared for and protected. I turned to look at the box on the ground. The girl's eyes follow mine. Someone handed that Helena to me, and so we ended up being attacked by all kinds of enemies each day, from Varjagers to Paradeus and now Mangai security. Since you are Helena too, I had no reason to leave you there. Paradeus has always been our enemy. I wouldn't have spared them even if I hadn't been tasked to escort Helena. As for those mercenaries, I don't have any particular grudges against them. That said, I had no reason not to shoot back when they shot at me first. I guess you can't trust us just yet, huh? I look up and give Springfield a look. She steps forward and addresses the girl. I sigh heavily. It seems this girl isn't as pure and innocent as our Helena, but behind her facade of grizzled independence are hints of a naive streak. I scratch my head at a bit of a loss for how to go on from here. Even fighting 10 Mangai security combat teams at once would be less of a headache than this. I'm just not used to handling kids. After thinking for a moment, I decided not to beat around the bush. It's probably time to get straight to the point. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to remember things like this now. But the things we saw in that underground facility today, they might be linked to all our pasts. And I want to sort this matter out. I want to uncover the truth no matter what. So that what happened back there will never happen again. So can you tell me everything you know about what happened down there? Why a village full of people would end up being snatched for use as test subjects, why there was a Boojum and Niter down there. What kind of ceremony were they conducting, and why Helena, that is to say you, exist? The girl listens silently as I rattled off a string of questions. She listens earnestly but shows no indication to answer them. After a long silence, she speaks at last. What do you mean? I'll end up dead because of you? Is that why you don't want to stay here? Because you were worried about that? She falls silent again. There is an anguished look on her face, one that I have never seen on Helena's face before today. Since they look identical, I can't help but compare her to the Helena who's been with us all this time. You look alike, but your personalities couldn't be any more different. She meets my gaze, then practically shouts what she's thinking. From the moment I learned Pardeus was involved in this matter, I knew that there was no way I could just stand idly by. I told you before, right? Since you're Helena too, I had no reason to just abandon you there. And even if you aren't Helena, There's no way I'd leave a child in a place like that. I get it, yes. But we aren't going to die because of you. You didn't kill those villagers, and neither did you kill those state-sec agents. It's not your fault that they died, it's the fault of that cult and the people behind them. If you shoulder the blame for their sins, you'll just be letting the true masterminds get away with their crimes. Colfin, who has been silent all this time, suddenly stands up. Colfin? The air in the room goes silent. After saying her piece, Colfin sits back down and says no more. Thank you, Colfin. I look at Helena and I address her in as kind and as firm a tone as I can manage. Running away won't solve anything, and running away won't stop tragedies like that from happening again. I'm sure you understand that. Don't take everything onto yourself. Also, don't look down on us. You saw how we took out that Boojum and those mercenaries, right? We'll uncover everything about the Helena incident. Considering how that Helena ended up in my hands, I am pretty sure you know what determined we are to interfere in this matter. Elna D68 bites her lip. There seems to be a great struggle again on in her heart. Nope. But we can do more than they can. Elna D68 thinks for a moment, and then she speaks at last. Do you know what Capitas is? Experiments. More bloody experiments. Don't those Paradios bastards have a single original bone in their bodies? Pardon me. What happened after that? Coffin looks at me. So our Helena was drawn to you by your prayers. The girl hesitates for a moment, and then she nods reluctantly. The fact that these Helenas can speak to each other's hearts, is something that's come up before. It seems the similarities between them and Paradeus, old Naito research warrants further investigation. Oh yes, there's one more thing. Who exactly is that person who possessed Helena? That consciousness who was talking to us? Why did you say she betrayed you? Helena clenches her fists, and as she scrunches up her face, tears begin welling up in the corners of her eyes. I understand. Alright, you've said enough for today. Go get some rest. My questions have been answered. What she said indicates that what happened before is essentially the same as what I theorized. Pardius took over a village, tricked its inhabitants into following their damn cult, used them as test subjects to fuse them with plants, which they later combined into a bosom, then tried to use the Helenas, who could hear psychic messages, to control them. Meanwhile, Niter and those cultists were responsible for protecting and controlling the Helenas. Mangai Security was responsible for ensuring the perimeter was locked down. This was a comprehensive biological experimental setup. While I don't know what the aim of all those experiments is, it's perfectly in the keeping of Paradise's way of doing things. And that also makes me certain that those bastards haven't been completely stamped out yet. Let us handle the rest. I promise you that nobody else will get hurt again. Golfin, stay by her side. Also, we need to check on the condition of the Helena in the box. Springfield, please take care of them. We'll have to discuss our course of action going forward. Springfield nods to me and then she turns to the sniffling girl. You want me to do it? In that case, I scour my brain to try and come up with a nice sounding name for the girl before me. How does Melanie sound? She looks up at me. This is an audio clip with the resource ID Wolf 003208. Okay.